What is up, everybody? And welcome to the 2021 Texas Soccer Summit presented by the Striker Texas. I'm your favorite former, I can't even say it right, your favorite former U.S. men's national team player, Jimmy Conrad. And I actually feel like I'm an adopted Texan, as I was saying to our guests prior to them. You're going to see their faces here very, very soon, because most of my family is uprooted from California and gone to Austin. Now, I do have a bone to pick with Austin. They were scared to show up today, but I do have some great guests from FC Dallas and the Houston Dynamo, two of the biggest clubs in Texas. And very excited to be joined by Luchi Gonzalez, the main man, the top banana, the head cheese of the team, and then Matt Jordan, Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Houston Dynamo. Now, fellas, we are talking about the transition from playing to the sidelines and the front office. And not only is it great to see your beautiful faces, I really want to start from the beginning. And Luchi, I'm going to start with you, because when I retired, I didn't have the choice to retire. I had concussions, and I got told it was in my best interest to retire. And that following year, it took me about 8 or 9 months to get out of the funk and to understand that my identity had disappeared. That I was always known, even in my own family, my best friends, I was the professional athlete. I was the one playing professional soccer. And then when that went away, I didn't really know who I was anymore. And it was very tough for me to kind of figure that out and to let go of getting to compete every day and getting to run around with other grown men in small shorts, kicking the ball in a certain direction and getting paid for it and all that type of stuff. And so I kind of want to start with you, and then Matt will come to you next, obviously. But Luchi, you go first, just about how you made that decision to go to the sidelines and what you worked through to get there.
Hi, Jimmy. First of all, just a pleasure to be here and be joined by you, Matt, in Houston, and Jimmy. I know you're based in California and spreading the knowledge and the passion for the game. For people that don't know, both Jimmy and Matt are former teammates of mine in different clubs in MLS, and actually both were mentors of mine as well, and not just on the field but off the field. So it's actually really a pleasure to be here with both of you guys, and thanks for having me, Jimmy. Regarding the question, similar to you, I was forced to start coaching because I wasn't as talented as most of the talent in MLS. I had my career. I was a very talented youth player. I played in youth national team events. I played a U17 World Cup. I was a very successful college player. And when I transitioned to MLS, or professional soccer, I bounced around a lot. I played in 7 different clubs in 8 years, and I was a survivor. But I never could find a home. The longest moment I had in professional was in Colorado with you, Matt, and when I was there for 2 years. Other than that, I was bouncing around trying to make it. And I think I naturally became a coach. I think by the 6th year I was playing, I started playing second division in what was then like the A-League. And so I was with Minnesota, which was a very pleasurable experience. I was a starter. I felt like a leader in the team. I played a lot. I participated a lot, but the income wasn't great. It wasn't stable. I was making a salary 7 months out of the year. My daughter was born, and my family started with myself as a husband and a father. So I just felt like I needed to maybe think about what direction I was going in terms of a career. I started to coach to earn supplemental income in Minnesota. In fact, I started to do that in Colorado, but it was very, very, very informal. And that was like once every 2 weeks just to get out there, do some camp work while I played. And I'm thankful that Colorado provided that opportunity. But when I was with Minnesota, it was pretty serious. A lot of the players were doing coaching camps. They were coaching on the side in youth teams. And I appreciated that. And I started to do that more often, and I gained a passion for just sharing everything that I went through to improve the young people in front of me. And I coached young girls, young boys, U9, U10 in Minnesota. And then by the time I was moving back to Miami, I carried that with me and started youth coaching.
Okay, and so I have a lot of questions about that, but we're going to get back to that in a second. Matt, talk to us about how you got into the front office side of things, because I always feel like, and I want to kind of explore this a little bit with Luchi as well, it's a nice fallback as professionals. We can always do coaching, right? Somebody will, look at this guy. He played 8, 10 years in the league. He's got to know what he's doing, And so you always kind of have that as a fallback, but you seem to take it another step and want to get into the front office. Talk to us about that. And then, of course, kind of your transition from playing to the front office as well.
Well, thanks a lot, Jimmy. I appreciate it. And just to echo what Luchi said, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on with you guys. Obviously Jimmy played against you for many years, and I had the pleasure of calling Luchi a friend and a former teammate. And I'm gonna give him much more credit than he gave himself. He was an extremely talented player and a great teammate as well. And so I really am honored to be on with you guys. So thank you. For me, I'd say, transitioning from playing to my post playing career was a big transition. My path, I had, similar to Luchi and yourself, Jimmy, went the college path. I had the opportunity when the league began to leave school early, where I had the opportunity to leave school early and start playing in the MLS. And was also, had a respectable career in the league, started with Dallas, and really from Dallas went to play in Denmark and chase that European dream that so many of us have done. And that was a great experience. And then had the opportunity to come back and play for the Columbus Crew. Got traded to the Colorado Rapids, which was my hometown, and had the pleasure of playing with Luchi and a lot of great guys there. And really the plan for me at that time was to kind of end my career, in my hometown. And then, after playing 2 seasons there, it didn't, different things happened. And really what happened with me is my wife was pregnant with my second kid. And when things didn't work out with Colorado, I ended up going up to Montreal. And so I went up to Montreal and I signed a 6-month contract. And I always remember telling my dad, I'm like, look, I just want to, first of all, my wife refused to come with me initially. She's like, look, I'm not having a kid in Canada. You can go alone. And finally I talked her in, I got her to come up there with me. And I signed really a 6-month contract to play the rest of the season. And then really six months became 8 years for me in Montreal. I had, 4 really productive, almost 5 years as a player. And then really I had signed a contract to play another 2 years. And then we got awarded the franchise to come into Major League Soccer. And at that time, the Saputo family came to me and they said, Matt, look, we're gonna go into the MLS. We'd like you. At that time, I was the director of soccer operations, and then I got promoted to be a technical director. Said, the opportunity is now if you want to take it. So it was a real tough decision for me because I still could play, but I felt physically I was on the way down in my mid-30s. And I actually, when I was in Colorado playing with Luchi, was getting my coaching licenses, and I was an assistant coach at a local Division II school called Regis University. And I coached ODP and I did different things also like Luchi and a lot of guys to make some extra money. But I felt at that time that my path was more the front office path. I got my sports management degree. And I always, I felt that was going to be the path for me. I didn't feel a passion for coaching. I just felt more of a passion for the front office path. And I'm very blessed to have been given that opportunity. And that's what's really led to me being here today.
Okay, so first and foremost, I think it's clear, Luchi, that Matt Jordan prefers to wear khakis than soccer shorts, and I respect that, Matt, in a lot of different ways. Second, you guys are way too friendly to each other. You're supposed to be hated rivals, so we're going to work on that as this continues. Now, Luchi, I want to talk to you, and Matt brought it up because he went over and played in Europe. You did as well. You went down to South America to play as well. How does that inform how you teach your kids today and how you talk to them and how you give them that type of experience to say there's a lot of different ways to get to the top. There's a lot of different ways to have success in this game and to experience this game in a meaningful way. Talk to me about that, because I think because you two both have that experience of playing overseas and also playing in MLS, you can really have this 360 view of the league outside of somebody that maybe didn't have that experience and can talk to these kids that are coming through about their aspirations and what's real and what's not and what's a stereotype and what's a myth. I think there's a lot of myth and romanticism around playing in Europe.
Sure. No, I'm going to share a story. The year that I was drafted into MLS was 2002. If we remember, that is the same year transitioning from 2001 to 2002, where Tampa Bay Mutiny and Miami Fusion both folded. And instead of 12 teams, the league went down to 10 teams. So it wasn't promising. It wasn't looking very positive for the league. And I actually did a trial for 2 weeks in Spain in a second division club called Racing de Ferrol. It actually went quite well. My grandfather's from Spain. He's from Galicia, the province in Spain, and he left Spain when he was 6 years old. He moved to Cuba, lived in Cuba for 20 years, and then moved to Lima, Peru, where he met my grandmother and started family. And that's, my father, my aunts, uncles, all, and that's my connection with. That's my bloodline through Peru. But my grandfather's from Spain, so I was in an effort to get a Spanish passport, so I could have an EU passport and try to play there. And it turns out the process wasn't looking good because my grandfather had left at a young age. He wasn't able to I wasn't qualified to get this passport because he left and was not considered a citizen anymore of Spain. So anyway, I won't get into the logistics, but it was disappointing. I didn't have this opportunity to play in Spain, and that was me being ambitious to go overseas. And no offense to MLS, it was just my focus. I didn't have a connection to an MLS club. I didn't grow up in a Miami Fusion academy because it didn't exist back then. I grew up playing in a youth club in South Miami, and that had no connection to MLS. And MLS didn't have MLS academies. And you just like you guys, I'm sure you can relate. We come from a world of training twice a week, in a youth club, competing. And then in college, having a 3-month season out of the year, which is another, obstacle in your development. But yet I was ambitious to go to Europe, but that didn't work out. And for sure, of course, I knew I was going to get drafted. I had a very good college career, and so that's what started my career in MLS. And I got drafted to San Jose Earthquakes, which is where I first met you, Jimmy, and you were starting center back there. But I got drafted into a team that was returning Landon Donovan, Dwayne De Rosario. They added Ariel Graziani. You had the young player that came out of the expansion, out of Tampa Bay Mutiny with Devin Barkley. So I barely touched the field. I did not touch the field. And I think, honestly, a lot of the passion that I can put into what I do today or what I've done in the youth is because I just didn't have, I feel I didn't have the environment that allowed me to be the best player that I could be, and I got a lot of great things from my father and my family. He always provided resources. So I'm really lucky to play with the young players I played with. Somehow a Kyle Beckerman can push through that lack of maybe environment and pathway and have an amazing career in the league. You pushed through that, Jimmy. You pushed through that, Matt, in your ways to earn your opportunities. But for me, I feel like I needed maybe another step between youth, college, and professional. Because I didn't break through as well as I would have liked, especially in the beginning, where I only played 8 games. In a whole year, I played 8 games and very limited minutes. And I was really disappointed with maybe the system. There was no reserve team. There was no academy. There was no there was no pathway that allowed for success for all of us, So I think that just carried with me subconsciously. And then as I started to coach in the youth, I was so determined to make sure I was going to provide, whether a U9 girl, a U12 boy in Kendall Soccer in Miami, or a U17 player in FC Dallas, I was going to provide them the best environment possible with enough reps, with enough decision making, with enough physical and mental challenges and obstacles, but with support and confidence building and opportunities to play, because players need to play so that they can develop. And so I'm a 21-year-old that didn't get to play, that played 8 games in a year. That destroys development. And there's no fault to that. And I have a great relationship with Frank Yallop, and he was so charismatic and a great coach in our league, won championships. But it was just the system. The system, I think, failed maybe a player like me, and for nobody's fault. It was the time, and now I feel like it's one of my jobs is to change that and improve it.
No, and you clearly have. I mean, we can talk ad nauseum about the success that FC Dallas has had from a youth academy perspective and how they've set the bar in a lot of different ways. Now, I know you're going to want to answer this, Luchi, but I'm going to throw it to Matt instead. as someone, for me, that was a late bloomer, right? I didn't get my first cap with the national team till 28, excuse me. First camp was 27, then 28 was my first cap. Played in a World Cup at 29. Do you feel like it's gone the opposite now? So Luchi's saying that maybe you can get identified younger, at least it feels that way. But as you get older, I don't know. I feel like the system almost helped me out because I had a chance to kind of stay alive and survive, to use one of Luchi's points. But now it feels like the system is, if you're not good at a young age, you might not get a chance to maybe develop at a later stage. People have already given up on you at that point. Do you find that with the Houston Dynamo? And I know Luchi's going to be chomping at the bit to answer this, and you can come back to it, Luchi. But Matt, what are you seeing with the Houston Dynamo and maybe that trend that's maybe pulling the other direction?
Well, Jimmy, first of all, I think I was a late bloomer as well as a player. And I mean, really, when the MLS, when there was a big transition after the '94 World Cup, and the country was changing, and we were going from the APSL, at that time I was really fortunate because I was a developmental player for the Colorado Foxes in the old APSL, and I mean, really was just a punching bag, every day, for a lot of really great players. But that really, I felt that helped me a lot, to be prepared for the professional game. But I also was a late bloomer. I mean, I think now, we have a structure is in place a lot more in this country than it was, where we're a little more patient at the rates with which guys are developing. And now you're seeing that, we're getting younger players that are getting minutes, and there's been a philosophical shift of getting, players, more time at a younger age. So I think that the opportunities are still there for even late bloomers. I think the big piece that we're all continuing to work towards is just facilitating that gap in development. And the FC Dallas has done a great job of that. And the league, I think you're going to see a lot of change over the next 12 months in that space as well, league wide. But where we're not having as big of a gap between the 19s and the academy and the first team, and we're having opportunities, whether it's through USL or through USL League One. And so I think that we're even those late bloomers, we're finding opportunities that, or maybe they were lost, that now they're getting more opportunities. But, also sometimes, a player needs to get out of their comfort zone and go on loan, to different environments, and to get into situations where they're uncomfortable. I mean, I remember, Jimmy, I think even we played a little bit, with the Project 40 team together when that first started, back in the day. I mean, it was just kind of survival to get games, and you're just trying to do whatever you can chasing the game and then hopefully when you get your opportunity, you grab onto it. And so I think to go back to the start of your question, I think we're getting to the point where even guys that are a little bit later developers, we're able to facilitate and not let them get lost like they maybe used to.
Okay. No, I appreciate that answer. Luchi, you can tack on or start your answer for the next one. I could talk to you guys all day, by the way. So just be prepared for a lot of questions from me. Now, Luchi, when I think about my career, even though I played for 12 years in MLS and accomplished what I did, my favorite year playing was when I played in the A-League, because it was that year where I didn't get drafted. I won the national championship with UCLA. I was one of the 5 seniors that did. I thought, oh man, I'm going to get drafted for sure. Top team, woohoo, and the other 4 seniors got drafted and I didn't. And so I then had to go down and find other opportunities. I started training with the Galaxy. They didn't want to sign me. So I went down to the San Diego Flash at the time. Slept on floors, made $500 a month, eating top ramen, training with the team in the morning, training by myself in the afternoon. But what I learned at that was, how bad did I want it? And with no guarantee that I was going to get there. And it was an incredible experience, because back in that day, there was no budgets. So we would fly up to Seattle. We would play Seattle on a Friday, drive up to Vancouver to play them on a Saturday night, go back to Seattle, play them on Monday, and then go back up to, it was the craziest schedule of all time. And we played the Minnesota Thunder at some point, and I know you had some time with them as well. And you already referenced that you had, your most pleasurable experience, I think, as a professional at that time. I just feel like sometimes it gets lost a little bit with the players. There's this expectation and maybe some sense of entitlement that maybe is creeping into the game. Based on your experience, how do you kind of manage that in a lot of different ways? Because a lot of kids think that once they're in the FC Dallas Academy, or once they get a sniff at the first team, they've made it in a lot of different ways, or once they play with the youth national team, they've made it. So how do you, based on your experience and through your transitioning, really help the players of the next generation kind of keep their feet on the ground?
Yeah, it's a great topic, and it's not just applied to soccer. It's applied to other sports. It's applied to any other industry or business and development. And I think there's always this question of nature versus nurture, right? And so I'd make the argument with you, Jimmy, because you referenced that you had to really struggle and grind, and your mentality allowed you to persevere and really analyze how much you care about this game, to the point where you improved your love for the game, you improved your commitment, you earned more, and you earned national team caps later in your career. And you're saying, well, maybe had there been more of a philosophy to give young players opportunities, maybe you wouldn't have got that opportunity. I would actually argue, maybe, Jimmy, had you had more repetitions as a young player in your club environment, trained 5 times a week, had higher level of competition against international club teams. Imagine you're a 17-year-old with 50 games in a club, international club games, and you're playing with professionals at 18 years old, at 17 years old, and you're getting those reps, those experiences. Imagine putting that together with your drive that you have naturally. So you're nurturing Jimmy better at a young age, but he's got natural things in terms of mentality and drive. And so you put that together, and I'd say, Jimmy, I'd argue you could have had more national team camps, and you could have played maybe more seasons in MLS, and you could have maybe debuted at a younger age. So that's where I would say.
I feel like this is becoming a therapy session for me, Luchi.
I'm just making the point that you did the best with what you had, and it's amazing what you've done with what you had. I want to just say, like your story and many stories in our country, imagine when we start improving our youth environments, our grassroots level support, our mid ages, and then our academy ages, now with more second teams, young players getting opportunities, then we're just going to have more world-class players. And Jimmy, I would say you did an amazing job to earn what you earned. But I want you to know that with a bigger environment, knowing who you are, you could have earned more. You could have done more. That's just the way I view it. I'll say the Vardys and the Wondolowskis and Aaron Long. Aaron Long has a great story about his pathway and his career. He was cut from 2 different MLS teams. He was struggling on a second team and somehow came alive, and he's on a senior national team now, and he's not a young buck, he's been around, and now with interest overseas. And so that to me is, right. Hey, there's going to be so many great different stories, but you want to have more players reach their potential, then the environment at the youngest ages have to continue to improve.
Yeah, that's great. Honestly, that's some good therapy for me. Now makes me rethink my whole career. Okay, Matt. So, and Luchi, I do want you to touch upon this too. Do you think it's harder to become a professional now than it was when we were playing? Because there's so much, feels like there's a lot more competition, and I think that the player pool and the urgency, and there should be an immediacy and an urgency to continue to make that player pool as diverse as possible, not only from backgrounds, but also the way that people think about the game and how they see it. Do you think it's harder now? Because to Luchi's point earlier, there was only 10 teams in the league, and you had to make the 18-man roster. There was no 23-man. There was no second team, no academy. There was no rules that were put in place to help kind of bring those types of players along. So I'm always curious when I talk to guys that have been around and seen some things. Do you think it's harder now to make MLS than it was back then?
Actually, I would, in my opinion, I'd say it's easier. And the reason I say that is because you see, there's a lot more avenues that you can take now. You can sign amateur deals at the USL level and not lose your college eligibility. You can play in League One. You can play in the championship. The MLS Next League is obviously growing and doing really well. And I think what you're seeing is when these players are having opportunities to sign, whether they're USL deals or MLS deals, younger, usually in today's world, you're not like all of us. I can't speak for you guys totally, but I mean, I think I had like in my career for 2 years, but all my other deals were always like semi-guaranteed, and we would always be like sitting, waiting for June 1st. You're like, holding your breath, hoping that, you don't get cut, June 1st, or you're the guy that they asked to take the exemption for another 30 days. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I actually think now, the opportunities and the patience is better than it used to be. And there's more professional contracts that these kids can sign. Where we just didn't have as many MLS teams, we didn't have as many USL teams, and it was harder back then to get professional experience without giving up your college eligibility. That's just my opinion. Maybe you guys disagree with me.
What do you say? What do you say, Luchi?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I don't know if easier is the word I would use. I would just maybe use more accessible, because, like Matt said, there's more platforms. I mean, there's more clubs, there's more leagues. Our own league is bigger. Our USL championship is so big that they're considering even breaking it up again. We have a third division that's professional. That didn't exist. There's still indoor around. I mean, if people still want to play indoor, which I went to a Sidekicks game the other night and it was entertaining. So, it's soccer. It's a different kind
is Tattoo still playing? I feel like Tattoo's like
Yeah,
75
he's
years
not
old,
there.
still banging in goals.
He's still playing over 50 men's league in Texas. If you didn't know that,
That's amazing.
He's still a beast with a big personality. But I agree with the idea that it certainly is much more accessible, which makes it easier now. I think also for the reason that the players are more prepared. There's more academies. There's better coaching education. There's better competition. I made the example of youth players are not just depending on the national team to get international experience. They're getting youth tournament. They're in. I know the pandemic now is causing a challenge with this, but in the normal times, young players are playing a lot of youth competitions, and that's a great development experience. I think the technology now with the scouting platforms are allowing for players to be identified all over the world. You've got Americans playing in all the leagues in the world, in Finland, in Eastern Europe, in Australia, and in South America. It's just it's such a more global game now than it ever was before, because there's so much more technology with and sharing of resources. So and then lastly, agents, like, I'm going to say this. We have agents talking to our 14-year-olds in our club, and I'm sure, Matt, you have the same challenges there. And so these agents they know the player is a player for FC Dallas, but I think it's important that the agent really respects that we are their home club, and they have a good communication with the club, and they represent the player and the family with that respect for the club, and that's not always the case. So that's a challenge, and then maybe the player is being shopped somewhere else if we don't have a very clear professional plan by the time the player is 14, 15, which is crazy if you really think about it. What were you doing when you were 14, 15? Did you have a professional plan? No, and so for me, it's more aggressive now, and that's not just in the US, it's around the world. So I think it's more accessible for our players now to be a professional, but I will say I think it's harder. I think it's still harder to be that elite world-class player. And maybe we have one that's close to it, like a Pulisic, and Weston McKennie is well on his way. But I think we're still a long ways from having the Ronaldinho, the original Ronaldo, El Fenomeno, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Messis. I think we have a ways to go. And I'm going to say again, with our zone 1 environments, and then our pathways, and then the mentality, because of all these distractions in our country with these young players. Do they have the mental fortitude, Jimmy, that you had to have to make it and to be a pro? I think I think we need to keep trying to help our young players today develop their mental strength. It's the one area you can talk about criteria, that player that becomes a professional. You can talk about their athleticism. Yeah, there's a minimum standard. They need to be athletic. I'm not saying Busquets is very athletic, but he's very coordinated. And that's a type of athleticism. It's a soccer athleticism. You can talk about technique. You can talk about decision making, right? Game IQ, and visual or cognitive. And then to me, you get into like personality. You get into mentality, mental strength. I think that's what makes the difference between two different identical talents at 17 years old, and the one that makes it, the one that doesn't, is because that the one that's willing to endure not being the top of the food chain at 17 with the pro team and grind their way through, put their ego to the side, help the team, and work every day, and make development their priority rather than can I score them? Why am I not in this 11 versus 11 inner squad? That young player can start doing that with their mind, and that's a player that I think can play a high level. So I think it could be harder mentally today than it was before because there's so many distractions.
No, that's a good answer from both of you guys. I love your insight. I was going to say my plan at age 14 and 15, with all due respect to my mental fortitude, which did show itself later on, was basically dominating people at Mario Kart. And I think that Mario Kart today is more like today's Mario Kart is Fortnite, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, but yet a little bit different in a little bit different ways. So Matt, I'm going to come to you with this, and then Luchi, you're going to get the same question, so you have the benefit of thinking about your answer a little bit more. The question is, with all the experience that you've accrued throughout your playing career, Matt, what's the one thing that really stands out for you in terms of informing how you lead now as a general manager, and what's important to you that you learned that I never wanted that to happen again if I ever become in charge? We used to say this to each other when we were on teams. Well, if I was ever in charge, I would never let that happen. I mean, is there something significant that happened during your career that really informs what you do in a positive and meaningful way?
Yeah, I think that what really I take, from my own career and my own career path, is that, I was, had a respectable career, but I was always the type of guy that had to really work for everything. And I think that really has served me well, when I've been working in the front office. And I think that also being humble. I think that's something that's really important, to make it, and with whatever you're doing after you're done playing, whether it's being a head coach or general manager or working in the media area, wherever it is, is that you have to understand, in my opinion, it's really important to take all these different experiences from each stop you've had, from each coach, from each teammate, and mold that into your path, but all along the way, I think, just being humble and not always just kind of like sitting back saying, hey, I did this as a player. That experience is important for all of us. It helps us, but at the same time, when you are done playing, you have to be humble and you have to be ready to learn and to work hard, to make mistakes, and also to listen. And so I think, that's what's helped me, in each, stop I've had, I guess that I use now every day. And I'd say the other thing for me is, you want to, I think what's really important is, you never really, when you're in a leadership role, you never want to ask others, to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And to me, I think that people respect that. And when you set the tone, look at Luchi right now, he's at the office, and he's setting the tone, and his players and the other coaches and everyone sees that, you set the standard, and so to me, I think when you show that willingness to roll up your sleeves and let your work speak for you, I think people respect that. And so that's what I've kind of taken with each stop in my playing career. And I've really just kind of taken into, leading, in the role I'm in now.
No, and you're doing great. You obviously have a ton of experience, and I'm excited to see what the Dynamo look like this upcoming season. And a shout out to Paul Holliker. I know he does a lot of great work for you guys at the academy level, and he's a friend. So I just want to say hi to him. And Rico Clark, I guess, is coaching too in your academy. I'm getting my A license, so I'm just giving a shout out to all my Texas friends, as I do here at the Texas Soccer Summit. All right, Luchi. So same question to you, but I want to lead it in with your previous answer. And that was because I agree with you. We can measure a lot of things with regard to the physical capacity of players, the technical and tactical capacity of players, but the mental side is probably going to be the biggest determinant as to how far they go and where they go and how well they do. So Is that, given your experience and where you've played and failed in some ways, you've obviously had your successes, but also failed. And I think we learn a lot from our failures because it stands out a little bit more. We expect this to wow, I can't speak English. It's my first language, everybody, and I can't speak English. We expect to succeed, but failure is a little bit different. And I think the people that know how to deal and cope with that ultimately figure out a way to survive. And I think we've used that phrase quite a bit. What has been, using this as a context, what has been, the biggest thing that you learned throughout your playing career that's really helped inform your coaching now?
Yeah, I think the best references when it comes to this area is hopefully over time pointing to a poster and showing the example, right? So Brian Reynolds just signed a deal to go to Roma, which is a great success for the club, for FC Dallas, and a great success for Brian Reynolds himself and his family, and a great success for Roma to invest in a young American talent who's just getting started. People don't know that Brian Reynolds, he really struggled in many moments in his development. And Brian found a way to take this struggle and make it an opportunity, and to, have a attitude that this is good. Oh, I didn't start. Good. I'm not playing my position. Oh, good. I can learn something different. I'm injured. Good. I gotta learn to prepare better off the field. So whether it's nutrition or lifestyle, and Brian, believe me, he was, from what I understand, fantastic off the field in his commitment. He lives with his family, as a leader in his home. So for me, I think that's an example of that. Now I can point to, I can say, hey, this kid Brian, guys, and I can even use an example to a 30-year-old on my roster. But this kid Brian, he went 2 years without playing, but never gave up. Was always helping his team with constant energy and commitment and training. And little by little, he just started earning more. Just little by little, started earning more. And then, it's funny, when he started playing, you can't, there was no moment that you said, oh, he's ready. Oh, Brian Reynolds is ready. He was never ready. But he was going to be prepared. He was going to be committed to everything that we had done up to that point. And his tools and his mentality allowed him to maybe not be ready, but grab the opportunities. And not in a perfect way. He made mistakes in his debut, in his first few games. We started him as a winger just to kind of get, involved and get some experience. And then when we started to play him at right back and start him in games and in important games, we losing Reggie in the midseason is never easy to replace your starting right back at any point. But we were very confident that Brian was gonna step in. So that's an example. It's just an example, and I think what Matt said was really important and powerful, that it's important that we model that as the best we can as leaders, whether it's the GM or the head coach or the assistant staff or your support staff. Just a little bit more about me in the academy. I started as a U18 academy coach. In fact, I'll go further back. I could have continued to play in Minnesota. I was an important player in the team. I could have continued to play. They offered me an extension for 2 more seasons, but I just knew I needed to go into this next stage of my career, what I was passionate, which was now teaching and coaching. So I started teaching in high school. I was a substitute teacher for a year in high school, and then I started to teach like math, algebra, and coach and direct at the same time. I was doing the high school team, the club team, and it wasn't easy. But then when I got to FC Dallas, I was the 18. I got to coach one team instead of 4 different jobs. I got to coach one team, and 2 years later, I was asked to coach instead of the U18 academy. I was asked to coach the U16 academy. And if you take our youth world, the perception of that is, well, that's a demotion. That's really disappointing. Well, I can't believe that. You're farther away from the professional. But there was this I don't know, maybe it was the influences around me, Oscar Pereja or Shellis before that, or Chris Hayden, or the ownership, Dan and Clark. It was just, I felt like this was my purpose. Instead of playing center mid, I was going to go play right back now, but they felt like that was a great opportunity for me to keep improving my coaching and focus on this age group that can maybe be influential for the professional team. So it's all about our perspective and make it important, give it purpose. And 2 years later, I'm being asked to be the academy director. And 2 years later, I'm being asked to coach the first team in a process where I was getting the second team ready. So it's just an example that, like Matt had said, whatever our role is, our job, just be present and be the best at it. Like do it 150% and do it amazing. If you're a U12 girls coach, be the best U12 girls coach in that club. Make them have your girls play a certain way with commitment, with your style of play, and show that's your everything, And if you end up being an academy coach or a professional coach or a college, that's a product of it. But I'm really a big believer, and I wish I would have had that maybe mindset when I was younger. But I, we grow, we evolve, and that's certainly a big part of the way that I try to live my life and the way I analyze players and try to guide players, young players and veteran players today.
No, I can sense that there's a theme probably emerging between all three of us with regard to hard work and dedication and discipline. And I think it's interesting. I've had this conversation before with regard to our biggest and brightest and smartest coaches should probably be coaching our youngest players. Because imagine if you had somebody that had our type of mentality and our level of experience coaching our U8s and U9s, and then you handed off that kid to the U12 coach. He would be thrilled at the first touch, the tactical understanding, the toughness, but there's no glory in that. And there's no fame or anything that comes along with that, and probably not as much money. And so it's a real shame that it kind of works backwards. So I applaud you for
change.
There should be. It should change.
That has to change.
Should change.
I still feel, and we're learning in ourselves here in Texas and the country. But you're right. A person committed to a 7, 8, 9-year-old, even before that, a 6-year-old. We don't want to get too out of carried away because it's so young to project a player. It's there's so many things in the pathway still that can hurt or help. But I 100% agree. I think the next step in all of our programs in the country, in this country, is to make that a priority and to get I'm not saying all your best people, because there's a budget, and you do want to have competent people with your older age groups and mid-age groups, but I certainly think we have the opportunity to invest more in our youngest ages.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of patience at that age as well that is a special quality that maybe I do or don't have. I can't confirm or deny that rumor that I'm creating at this time. Now, Matt, I'm going to come to you because I'm friends with Tom Byer. And he is a person that specializes in ages 4 through 9. I know he's come and spoken and worked with the Houston Dynamo and Paul Holliker in particular. Really special guy. And I think he basically is what me and Luchi are echoing, his types of sentiments and his way of seeing the game. The game grows at home. And not only can you do it on the field, but it can be encouraged at home to continue to get touches in a meaningful way and in a really fun way. The ball mastery is kind of where it starts. My question to you, though, I want you to touch upon that for sure, because I think it'll kind of give context and inform the next question I have for you. I've got a lot of layers to all my questions, as you guys can tell. Is now that you're in Texas, you're a Colorado kid, a lot of experience in Montreal, played all over. What are you seeing in Texas with regard to development and just the amount of players that want to play and get better? And then how do you then bring them into the Houston Dynamo Academy in a meaningful way and then get them exposed to these coaches and these types of methodologies?
Well, I think that Texas, as it was when we were all coming up, but in particular now, I mean, I think it's one of the best states for young players, to be and develop and grow in, because one, I think the climate is very conducive to playing outside year round. I think that's a big deal. I mean, I remember from my time in Montreal, I mean, it's really hard in a lot of these cold weather climates when you're not outside and you're finding ways to, play futsal tournaments and do different things, to just be touching the ball. So I think that, Texas is it's such an advantage. And there's a reason why a lot of top players are coming from the state of Texas. And you've seen that from other states where there's a warm climate. I think obviously also, we're bordered on Mexico as well. And there's a lot of crossover between Mexico and Texas, and that can be a real advantage, for us here in the state of Texas. And I think that you touched upon it, and Luchi touched upon it a little bit as well. As I think the grassroots level it's so important, right? Because we want to get to the point where we're getting kids. There's so many great athletes in the United States, right? That play like all of us. Growing up, you play football, basketball, baseball, soccer. You're exposed to all these different sports, right? But at the grassroots level, if we can get more kids exposed to the game, to have a level of comfort with the ball, and when it's like anything, when you're comfortable, when you're good at a sport, you're passionate about it because you're successful, right? And so I think that really, if talking about like someone like Tom Byers and our work with him and the work that the guys at Dallas and a lot of the other clubs here in the state of Texas are doing, we're all competitors, but we also, there's a responsibility to kind of try to have the all the boats rise with the tide. And our academy director always says, Houston's the size of Croatia, and I mean, when you really think about that, and so I think if we can, continue to really focus in at the grassroots level, getting kids comfortable with the ball. I mean, we started, when I started to get to know Tom as well, it was, so interesting. I mean, it's actually, a lot of the principles are so the opposite of what we were all taught. Hey, and I did as a parent with my son. Hey, kick the ball. You got lock. Strike the ball as hard as you can. And I would just sit in the backyard with my son. In goal, and we'd be striking the ball. But it's really that level of comfort with the ball. And actually, I felt like I failed as a parent the more I got to know Tom. As my kids become teenagers. But I think that's something that, and not nationwide. If we can continue to invest at the grassroots level, I think that's going to really help the national team. It's going to help youth development. It's going to help, for us to produce those world-class players that we're already doing, but even a higher level, that are going to be at the highest levels when they're coming through our system.
No, I love that. Now let's talk, Luchi, about FC Dallas's academy, just off the heels of that. You guys have done a good job, and obviously you have a lot of experience being one of the coaches and then the director for a while before getting the first team job. There's some name recognition. When people say, oh, it came out of the FC Dallas Academy, that's a very big deal. And I think that is attributed to all the hard work that you guys are putting behind the scenes. But to your point, you got agents circling. I'm sure you have other clubs that are coming to poach your players as well. Kind of, how do you manage all that? And then also, with regard to what you do now, how do you bring them along into the first team to make sure that you're following that player plan that you had mentioned earlier?
Yeah, similar to Matt and the demographics in Houston, again, we also have weather that's conducive to playing year round. There's fields everywhere. There are soccer fields everywhere. If you look at the amount of soccer fields like per square mile, I mean, I have to believe, I know we're not as dense maybe as some other the cities in the Northeast, but we've got a lot of fields. I mean, just in FC Dallas, we have 20 fields between the pro and the youth program, and then we have another 25 in MoneyGram, which is our facility in the Southwest. So that's 45, almost 50 fields, because we have some other ones that are spread around. I mean, it's insane the space that you're allowed. There's a lot of development of sports spaces, right? And these are multi-use spaces, but there's space. There's plenty of space to play the game. I think the numbers are pretty high in Texas. I mean, if you look at youth numbers, I think Texas and California may be the highest in the country in terms of youth soccer participation. And there's a lot of passionate people behind that in terms of NTSA, like North Texas Soccer Association. I mean, they put a lot into this. I can make arguments about, should it be 7 versus 7 versus 9 versus 9? Do we get into 11 versus 11 too early because of registration? Those are fees. That's money. Okay, there's a business side of this, but there's certainly a lot of numbers. I don't know if Houston's like this, Matt, but in Dallas, there is promotion and relegation from U9 to U19 in four divisions. So it's super competitive. The youth sports platform in Dallas is competitive, whether it's American football, basketball, AAU, baseball. And then in soccer, it's the same. It's super competitive. The parents, the families, maybe they don't understand this history of the game. They don't, past 1990, but they're passionate about it. And whether it's kicking the ball or having ball mastery, Jordan, they're going to be passionate about competing and winning. So you're talking about young players and coaches just really competing to get promoted, to win the league, not get relegated. If the team gets relegated, it's gonna dismantle, and then these players. I mean, that sounds so stressful. It sounds so like psychologically wrong. But go to Argentina, and these young players are going through the same stress, and they play all over the world. So I don't want to say it's a good stress, but if it's channeled well, it could. We have players that come to our program that came through that type of culture and environment in youth sports. And like Matt said, it's very diverse. It's very diverse. You have players from all different parts of Latin America, South America, and parts of the world. There's African communities in Dallas. So there's always a great mix of culture and different profiles and styles of the game individually, collectively. So it's very diverse. And in terms of FC Dallas, I just feel like we take those ingredients and we can just filter them and put them in a pathway, put them in an environment, and so we're lucky enough to work with all those things that I've named before I even said anything about FC Dallas. Because don't forget, Jeff Agus came out of Dallas, Texas. Clint Dempsey came out of Nacogdoches, 2 hours from here. Maybe you could argue one of the best players of all time for the U.S. Soccer. Funes Mori brothers. These are guys that played all over the world. Funes Mori brothers. One was a center back, one was a forward, playing in Mexico, playing in Europe, and those guys, they played and they went back to Argentina, but they lived in Dallas, played in our program. We never signed them. Maybe you've never heard of them, but they were like top players in the world. But one played in Everton. So I can name you a lot of players. Chad Daring out of Dallas. Ugo Ehemelu out of Dallas. Didn't come through FC Dallas, but now you're starting to have these ingredients coming through a pathway, and maybe now they can go start for Juventus, or maybe they can go and compete and start for Roma one day. So it's improving over time, but we're lucky. We're lucky that in Texas we have these ingredients to work with.
No, it's exciting times for both of your clubs. And speaking of that, you're not the only two clubs in Texas that exist. There's one in San Antonio, one in El Paso, and now a new one coming up at your level with Austin. How excited are you for this, Matt? I'm going to come to you, to have a team in Austin, first and foremost, and then secondly, to have another rival in the state, because as we're talking about, and to Luchi's point about the promotion relegation at the youth level, it's only going to make you guys stronger and force you to be even better than you were before.
Yeah, we're so pleased. I mean, I think you've seen, and I think it's what's really we've seen over the years as MLS has evolved. These regional rivalries. And you can feel them. There's and it's something now. Where we have FC Dallas, we have Houston, we have Austin. And we're all our supporters are all within the driving distance. It adds a whole different element when our youth teams play. I mean, it's really exciting. It's really exciting, and I mean, I think for us, I mean, and what it does, it just creates, obviously more pressure. There's more pressure to perform. There's more pressure to take your own path. I mean, but also find success. And so, I mean, we're really excited about it. And then also at the USL level, like you said, San Antonio FC is a good program. El Paso as well, RGV. I mean, it's good programs. I mean, even now we're dealing with Luchi and I were just talking about this before the call, is that, we're dealing with the challenges we're all dealing with right now. And a lot of teams in MLS, they're scrambling, to get out of state and to, figure out where they can go here to get games. I mean, we've all come together and we're like, look, we have a lot of great things in Texas, and we're going to play each other, in preseason, and so there's just a lot of benefits. And so we're really excited about this regional rival and what it's going to look like.
Okay, and I also want to give a shout out to the Austin Bold. I didn't mean to leave them out of the conversation. Obviously, they're doing a lot of good things in Austin as well. No. It started with me, man. Okay, so Luchi and Matt, I'm going to come to you because I want your perspective, but I'm going to start with Luchi first. I mean, Austin's new; they're coming in, and you got to let them know what's what, right? They're the new kid on the block. They're going to try to come up with all their attitude and their fancy new jerseys and their fancy new stadium. And so I'm just kind of curious if you're going to slap them around 3-0 or 4-0 the first time you play them.
Oh man, look, it's competition is always good. Competition is always good. Competition allows you teams or individuals or organizations to be great. So there's no Boca Juniors without River Plate. There's no Manchester City without Manchester United. And now when you throw a third team in that type of dynamic, it's exciting. I think it's fantastic that Austin is going to be in MLS now, and it's just going to make us all more excited to be a part of the league, to compete. Off the field, like Matt says, we're all collaborating. We all want to play each other in the preseason. We want to make sure that we're helping this game grow, that we're improving youth development, that we are learning from each other, whether it's on an MLS leadership call or it's setting up exhibition games or trading players to one another. We're gonna appreciate each other off the field, but on the field, it's war. It's war. We're all gonna want to show our killer instincts and compete and come out and make sure we don't come off the field unless we win the game, because that'd be a big disappointment. But then we get back up, or we come down from the clouds, whether you win or lose, and you be ready for the next one, because every rivalry is going to be like a final. But I embrace it. I cherish it. It's going to help us be better. It's going to help the league be better. And this is what it's all about.
I love it. I love you're so diplomatic. I think I saw you guys winning 3-0 somewhere in that answer. And also, you probably should run for mayor of Frisco afterwards. That was a nice one. Now, Matt, my former roommate, you guys were roommates in Colorado. My former roommate, Josh Wolf, coaches Austin FC. His assistant is Davey Arnaud, who sat next to me in the locker room with Kansas City. Tyson Walls, my former teammate in the back line with Kansas City. He's the head of their academy. Claudio is a teammate. Claudio Reyna was my teammate with the national team. So I have a lot of vested interest. I'm just giving those guys a hard time because they didn't send a representative to talk at the 2021 Texas Soccer Summit, and you guys did. So fair play to you guys, and there's a lot of respect, I think, that you're earning, a lot of street cred from a lot of people for doing so. Now, Matt, talk to me about Austin. How bad is Houston going to smash them in the first game?
Well, look, to piggyback off what Luchi said, I mean, we're really excited about the challenge. I mean, they've got good people over there. Josh is a great coach. He's, also a former teammate. Davey was an assistant coach and our interim head coach here, and is a good friend. Claudio's doing a great job. Tyson Wall, actually, when I remember an expansion, I was working and we brought the expansion team to Montreal. We drafted Tyson out of Seattle. So soccer is a small world. It's a really small world, and those guys are competitors just like Luchi and myself, and there's no easy games, that's for sure. And these rivalry games, I mean, they have there's an extra feeling to all these games, and I think that's what we're all looking forward to, and it's going to be a battle in the state of Texas, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your experiences from your playing career and how that informs what you're doing now. And Luchi, any final thoughts for you guys as you head into this upcoming season?
Yeah, again, thank you, Jimmy, for having us on. Thank you to the striker, Matt. Great to always see you. And we're always competing, but just to share these ideas and help the game grow and see how far we've come, but know that there's still so much more work ahead. It's just a nice moment to share with you guys here. We want to be on the field. It's been a longer off season than normal. I know we're anxious to just be on the field. I can't wait to lay down that first cone, put a penny on a player, and maybe even jump in there myself in the rondo. But it's just it should be exciting. There's a lot of challenges in the world right now with the virus. There will continue to be challenges, but I think we're more prepared. I think what we learned last year was hard. Certainly we had an experience in Orlando that I'll never forget, and really challenged and how I needed to lead in that moment. And I think I really learned what the word compassion is all about. And but I'm grateful for that experience and that stress. It's what allows me to try to be stronger and better and a better leader. So this is a year that after learning all the things we did last year, how can we master some things, develop things still with no excuses, and do better and achieve more. But this is a competitive league that's built on parity, and the small things make a big difference. So I'm just excited to get out there and keep learning, but compete and try to take advantage of opportunities.
Matt, I can't speak for you, but I really want Luchi to be my life coach. It's just tremendous.
Yeah.
I always feel like, man, I've got a little pep in my step. I can go tackle the world now. So thank you for that,
Hey.
Luchi. And
I'm actually
That.
I'm very emotional. If you ever talk to a player that I have the pleasure to coach, I'm quite emotional, and I'm very animated. But for me, it's about the right moment. And if you're in a locker room, then I'll get you fired up the best I can, Jimmy. If you're in one of our locker rooms.
100%. I want to be in there one day. I want to be in there. It comes from the heart. And I think that's why everybody knows and appreciates you, is because it comes from the heart. Now, Matt, how about you? Houston Dynamo perspective. How are you guys feeling for the upcoming season, and any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, listen, we're very excited for the upcoming season. I mean, last year presented challenges like none of us, that there's no game plan, there's no playbook for what we all went through last year. I mean, it was almost, and I know Lucci feels the same. I mean, you just woke up, you wake up every day, you're like, prepared. You have to expect the unexpected, and I think we're much more prepared this season. There's light at the end of the tunnel with all this, with everything we're all going through. And so I think we got to all feel really good about that. I'm so pleased that things got sorted out with the players union and the league, and we can put that behind us for 7 years, and I mean, that's huge. And I mean, the future is so bright for this league, and we're really excited as well. I mean, I feel for Tab. I mean, his first year as an MLS head coach, after one game, you have to, work to navigate through a global pandemic, and that's really tough, especially with a majority of a team that we brought back. And so I'm really happy, that, now he's going into year 2, and we're really excited, with what, we're working towards, and just really appreciate the opportunity, Jimmy. It's always great to see you, Lucci. It's great to see you as well. And just, I also want to just thank the striker for this opportunity.
Well, thank you guys again, and best of luck to both of you guys for these upcoming seasons.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank
everyone.
Great job,
Luchi
Jimmy.
Gonzalez. Thank you very much. Matt Jordan. This has been, I have the distinct honor of saying this is the end of the 2021 Texas Soccer Summit presented by the Striker Texas. And I want you guys to know that the Striker Texas is a new publication that is bringing everybody together in the Texas community, trying to spread the goodwill about the beautiful game in a very positive way. So make sure you go check them out at thestrikertexas.com. And that's it. We are done. I'm your favorite former U.S. men's national team player, Jimmy Conrad, and I appreciate you watching. See you next time.